Hey Royal Sussex Squad, welcome back to the channel where truth reigns supreme, receipts matter and spin gets sent straight to the recycle bin. If you're tired of the lies, the smear campaigns and the recycled nonsense peddled by the British tabloid machine, you are in the right place. Here we honour courage, we celebrate truth, and we lift up those who dare to break generational cycles of silence and abuse. So grab your tea, your coffee or whatever gets you fired up, because today we are diving deep into a topic that shows us once again why Prince Harry and Meghan Markle remain the most relevant, most talked about and most feared royals in the modern era. And would you believe this time the source of the tea is none other than the New York Times? Yes, you heard that right. For once, an American outlet, one of the most respected newspapers in the world, has done what the British press refuses to do: tell the truth. Instead of running to the usual Windsor apologists or those bitter royal reporters still crying about Harry choosing love over duty, NYT's London bureau chief Mark Landler actually gave us an article with insight, fairness and just a little bit of backbone. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the New York Times is suddenly our new best friend. But in a media landscape where Meghan can sneeze and end up the front-page villain in 10 different UK outlets, we've got to pause and appreciate when someone tells the story straight. In this piece, Landler highlights something that should shake Buckingham Palace to its core. Harry's voice still matters. In fact, his words echo louder than any royal speech or stiff balcony appearance. During King Charles's attempt to commemorate the 80th anniversary of VE Day, an event that should have been about honouring veterans, the spotlight was hijacked by something far more compelling. Harry. Not by scandal, not by chaos, but simply by the power of him telling the truth. And what did he say? That he's concerned about how much time his father has left, that the wounds in this family run deep, that his father could have done more. That's it. No theatrics, just honesty. And somehow that honesty was enough to send the entire palace into DEFCON mode. Instead of focusing on healing or reconciliation, the palace jumped into defensive gear again. They scrambled to push back against Harry's comments about security. They begged journalists not to cover the family drama during the VE Day commemorations. But you know what? When you try to suppress the truth, you just end up making it louder. And that's exactly what happened. Peter Hunt, a respected former BBC royal correspondent and one of the rare voices of reason, put it plainly: this all reflects poorly on King Charles. A monarch is supposed to represent unity, healing and family. Yet here we are, years into his reign, and he's still completely incapable of making peace within his own household. You can't sell the world a message of tolerance and inclusivity while shutting out your own son and grandchildren. And let's not forget that this whole mess didn't start with Harry and Meghan. It started with the firm. It started when the institution and the toxic courtiers who run it chose public perception over private protection. When they leaked, smeared, and manipulated until Harry and Meghan had no choice but to walk away to save their mental health, their safety and their marriage. This isn't just a rift. This is a rupture caused by silence, pettiness and outright cruelty. And no matter how many times the British media tries to blame Harry for telling his truth, the receipts say otherwise. He didn't break this family, the institution did. Now let's talk about William. Oh yes, the heir. The man who once branded Harry fragile is now being painted as the strong one, just because he's finally showing up to events he used to skip. We've all seen the headlines. Prince William steps up. Prince William takes on more duties. Prince William the statesman. Really? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like a PR makeover, not genuine leadership. Let's be honest here. William has long been called work-shy for a reason. He avoided royal duties for years, lived in seclusion, while his younger brother carried the emotional burden of royal appearances. And now that there's a vacuum left by Harry, Andrew and a sickly King Charles, suddenly he's Mr. Reliable? Please. Let's not confuse necessity with nobility. He's being forced into the spotlight because there's no one else left to hold the crown. But charisma can't be faked. And empathy? That's something William has never shown Harry. Not in public and certainly not in private. The real issue is this. The royal family is falling apart in plain sight, and Harry and Meghan were never the problem. They were the truth-tellers. The ones who dared to say, "We deserve better." And they've been punished for it ever since. Meghan was vilified simply for existing, for loving a prince, for speaking with clarity and compassion. And Harry, he's been branded everything from traitor to attention seeker, when in reality all he ever wanted was a safe space for his wife and children. Let's not overlook the double standards either. Prince Andrew settled a lawsuit related to serious allegations, and yet he still lives on royal estates, enjoys taxpayer-funded security, and faces barely a fraction of the public criticism that Harry and Meghan have endured. Make it make sense. And through it all, Harry and Meghan thrive, despite the hate, despite the lies, despite the smear campaigns, the tabloid obsession, and the relentless attempts to erase them from the narrative. They are building something real, something sustainable. A family built on love, not duty, purpose, not protocol. That's why they remain the most talked about royals on the planet, because people recognise authenticity when they see it, and because no amount of royal spin can hide the fact that Harry and Meghan are living proof that you don't have to stay where you're not respected. And to the folks who still try to villainise them, ask yourselves why. Why are you so angry that they walked away from abuse? Why are you mad that a woman said no to being sacrificed on the altar of colonial nostalgia? Why are you so desperate to see them fail? Because deep down, you know the truth. They were right to leave. And the institution is worse off without them. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to keep supporting them. We're going to keep speaking up. We're going to continue countering the noise with truth, with passion, and with receipts. Because history will remember Harry and Meghan not as rebels or runaways, but as revolutionaries. NYT. King Charles's drama with Prince Harry will reflect badly on his reign. It's fascinating to watch as American newspapers try their hand at royal gossip. That's all it is too. Almost all royal reporting is just gossip, dressed up as news or analysis. Well, the New York Times published a fascinating piece this weekend, written by their London bureau chief, Mark Landler. Instead of quoting monarchist hacks who pick up paychecks, screaming about the Duke and Duchess of Sussex on GB News, Landler spoke to Peter Hunt, who has become something of an even-handed critic of the monarchy. Landler also spoke to Ed Owens, a historian who doesn't seem to be particularly wrathful towards the Sussexes, which means this news analysis comes across as fair and free of Buckingham Palace's talking points. Some highlights: Prince Harry's BBC interview disrupted the VE Day commemorations. King Charles III was busy last week marking the 80th anniversary of the Allied victory over Nazi Germany and preparing to fly to Canada to open its parliament later this month. But his public schedule was eclipsed yet again by a highly publicised eruption from his estranged younger son, Prince Harry. It has become a familiar pattern for the 76-year-old monarch. 2 years after his coronation, his reign is shaping up as both eventful and oddly unchanging in its core narrative, that of a beleaguered father managing a messy brood. Harry's comment about not knowing how much time Charles has left. "There is an overhang in the way we see Charles's reign," said Ed Owens, a historian who writes about the British monarchy. "It hasn't really gotten going, nor are we sure how long it will last." Charles's reign might be defined by the Sussex mess. But Harry's comments, which came after a legal defeat over his security arrangements in Britain, dragged attention back to the rift that opened in 2020, when he and his wife, Meghan, withdrew from royal life and moved to California. Some royal watchers warn that unless Charles finds a way to heal that rift, it could define his reign, undercutting the messages of tolerance and inclusiveness that he has long championed. Peter Hunt on the interfamily squabbles. "When history comes to be written about the king, this will reflect badly on him," said Peter Hunt, a former royal correspondent for the BBC. "He represents an institution that is about family, unity, and fostering forgiveness. His role is to bring people together, and yet he can't bring people together on his doorstep." Buckingham Palace did too much around Harry's BBC interview. The palace pushed back on Harry's contention in the BBC interview that his father could have done more to spare him the loss of automatic, publicly funded police protection when he visits Britain. The palace appealed to journalists not to focus on the family drama during a week dedicated to VE Day commemorations. Far from calming the waters, Mr. Hunt said, that had the effect of keeping the spotlight on Harry longer than necessary. It's a private issue, but they are using the full weight of the institution to respond to him, Mr. Hunt said. Work-shy William has been thrust into a more public role. Harry remains estranged from his older brother, Prince William, as well as his father, which adds to the portrait of a family divided and diminished. When the royals gathered on the balcony of Buckingham Palace to watch a flyover of warplanes last week, their ranks were noticeably sparse. For William, the loss of Harry and Andrew, as well as his father's illness, has thrust him into a more conspicuously public role. William has sometimes been seen as work-shy, but we see him gravitating toward bigger, more media-friendly events, said Mr. Owens, the historian. He's burnishing his reputation as a statesman. William doesn't want to be king. The heir to the throne made perhaps his biggest splash with the British public when he offered astute sports commentary last month before a Champions League game pitting his favourite soccer club, Aston Villa, against Paris Saint-Germain. One of the hosts, Rio Ferdinand, joked that he could take his job. The job that William does not want, at least for now, is his father's. But fears over the king's health have made talk of succession inescapable. In late March, Charles was briefly hospitalised after a reaction to his medication. The palace insisted it was a minor bump on the road to recovery, but it set off alarm bells at British broadcasters, for whom the passing of a monarch sets in motion massive coverage. The king's cancer. But such high-profile engagements, royal watchers say, do not disguise the fact that his illness has hindered him from pursuing the kinds of reforms to the British monarchy that many expected after his coronation. The man has had the wind taken from his sails, Mr. Owens said, from the NY Times. In my opinion, Peter Hunt is a real one, and he's one of the few people in this world who seems to see the bigger picture. Hunt has maintained for years that the Sussexes were mistreated, that the institutions screwed up when it came to Harry and Meghan throughout, and that Harry in particular continues to be a huge thorn in his father's side. Love this. William has sometimes been seen as work-shy, but we see him gravitating toward bigger, more media-friendly events. That's Brit speak for he's lazy as hell, but he's also desperate for attention. Anyway, I appreciate the fact that the NYT isn't just co-signing the British media's talking points. It's nice. We need more of this. And before you go, if you value what we're doing here, shining light where the mainstream media won't, calling out hypocrisy and uplifting those who dare to break the mould, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode. And if you want to help us keep the truth alive, consider dropping a super thanks below. Every single contribution helps us keep doing this work, honestly, unapologetically and boldly. This is Royal Sussex Squad, and around here, we don't play palace games. We tell it like it is. Until next time, stay brilliant, stay bold, and stay loyal to the truth.